Adam Harless with Prezi. Excited to be talking to you today. You're running sales ops over there. We've known each other for, I don't know, like 3 years probably. Met you back in your Echo days. So you were in Chicago, I think, and doing an operational role with Echo. Totally different than Prezi today. So curious how you made that move, and congrats on that move. But you talked about ambition back then, and we got ambition working with Echo. And then we came over to Prezi. So excited to learn and hear from you today on what you guys are working on and how you're using Ambition at Prezi. For those watching, I'm Jared. I'm one of the co-founders of Ambition. This is a How I Use Ambition kind of webinar. And we're going to be walking through Prezi's live instance of Ambition, how it works with Salesforce.com, and really how they're driving their sales culture around it. So we'll let Adam kick off an intro and kind of dive into the instance and kind of talk through some things today.
Sure. So yeah, I run in the sales operations at Prezi. We have a mainly inbound sales team of about 25 sales reps, and it's all inside sales spread around 3 offices, with 2 in Europe and 1 in San Francisco. Previously though, when I first kind of came across Ambition, I was at a large logistics company with about 700 sales reps. They're very different. Outbound sales, a lot of cold calling, high activity, a ton of junior reps. And so when we had looked at it there, it was really, especially around gamification and trying to get these new reps ramped up and giving them visibility to their activities, but also kind of making a game of it, creating competitions and having a tool to run that instead of having to manually have one of my analysts do it, spend all their time on it. And that was really, it was a good use case for a large team. But, I've come to Prezi here now, and it still works, a lot of the similar ways for an inside sales team and a small team. So when I got here, we only had 2 sales reps. Over the next 6 months, we'd grown to about 10, and we had the basic Salesforce reporting, but the reps just really aren't interested in looking those up or looking at a Salesforce dashboard. And so, I was aware of Ambition, and so I'd reach back out to Travis to see if we could kind of find a fit for the smaller team. And so at that point, we implemented it, and here it's really to kind of build the culture of a brand new sales team. So the big focus is on kind of the TVs and the competitions. So we'll use it for spiffs, and then we also use it for our daily activities and reporting to provide visibility for that.
Cool. Yeah, I think everybody thinks about, call it gamification, call it spiffs, or call it like building a sales culture. People think about a lot of that for like tools needed for outbound. So obviously at Echo, it's all about picking up the phone. You got to make outbound phone calls. You got to go get freight. On an inbound sales team, especially in an earlier company, it's about building a sales culture. It's about figuring out what to measure. It's totally different problems. So I think I'm super eager. I think others are super eager to learn on, how you thought about coming to a team of 6 and, kind of building that initial sales culture. I'm pretty excited to learn about that.
Yeah, so it is a very strong engineering culture here. So the company itself was established, but the sales team was brand new. So giving visibility to the rest of the business on what's happening in sales was super useful, not necessarily so that we could say one rep had 80 calls and one had 70, but really just to give some context to the kind of the engineers and the software guys that are the bigger part of our company. And so that's where the TVs really help out. But yeah, we're not holding reps to 100 calls here. It's not that type of outbound call center. So we'll have those in our activities, but our focus is really going to be around lead conversion, demos, and kind of deals closed, as opposed to just straight kind of effort metrics.
Right, which is different game, but still obviously important to measure the conversion rates on inbound, just like it is for an outbound team having to pick up the phone. Sure. And great work.
Yep, definitely.
Cool. I know you guys have awesome TV utilization. Excited to look at those. What's the sales stack today? I think contests are big for you guys too. We'll take a look at if you have any
Yeah.
live.
So we use Salesforce for our CRM. We use TalkDesk for our call integration. And then we use Groove for our email platform and kind of the lead cadences. So when to respond to a lead and calendar invites and that type of thing. And then we use Zoom if we need to do anything video.
Yep.
But Prezi also has its own presenting tool. So it just depends on what we're trying to show as far as the demo goes. And then we would use Zora for our quoting. I think those would be our bigger, the tech stack.
Got it. And like metrics that we may look at with Ambition, I assume like your dialer to TalkDesk, I think, is that passing through to Salesforce and like logging call activity?
Yeah, so the TalkDesk and Groove will both log all of our calls and demos and emails into Salesforce, and then that'll go right into Ambition, which is kind of within Salesforce. So we never really have to leave the platform. It's all just there.
So you guys are using all those tools inside of Salesforce, but then you use the Ambition tab in Salesforce, like just the full picture view?
Yeah, so that's what we'll use, especially to build things out and for the competitions. And then the TV screen is kind of its own link, I guess, but we can get to it through the Salesforce tab.
Cool. Well, let's jump into it. I know, so as a sales ops leader, a lot of times sales ops owns technology, right? So you own Salesforce, you own those plugins. A big question we always get is how does it work with Salesforce object language? So if it makes sense, why don't we think about, or why don't you tell us about the metrics that were of importance as you're growing a sales team and like how you started building those metrics and Ambition and building that culture of transparency?
Okay, sure. So I'll just share my screen.
Cool.
All right, and can you see that?
I've got you. So this is Ambition Salesforce.
Yeah. So this is kind of our metric builder here. So at the time, I pretty much took any standard metric you might think of, calls, demos, leads converted, if we closed a deal, overall call-in activity, voicemails. So any of the standard activities, and then the output of the leads converted and the amount closed. And then can kind of use those both sides of the equation to kind of figure out performance and effort from the sales reps. From there, we would put them into our TV screens, and that's where we have this visibility for the rest of the business.
Yeah, I think so. One thing that I always find interesting is like every company, some use TalkDesk, some use Outreach or SalesLoft or DialSource. There's a number of tools out there. Everybody's always wondering, okay, how does it work with my data? So like right here, from an ops perspective, how is it to sync metrics over to Ambition? So what metric are we looking at here?
So this would just be all calls. So we're looking at connections, if we left a voicemail or a no voicemail. So that means they just didn't have a mailbox set up or a bad phone number. So this would be the overall calls. It just displays as a number, and then you say that it's owned by that person who made it. It's
Gotcha. So
pretty basic.
Got it. So you're measuring by the owner ID on the task. So TalkDesk in this case is writing back to the Salesforce task record.
Yep.
And you got tracking all types of, so those dispositions you have down there of like left voicemail, no voicemail. Did you build those out with TalkDesk or are those standard?
These were just built out. So TalkDesk is pretty simple. It's kind of a similar platform. You'll have your drop downs, and then so we pick your activity types in Salesforce, and then you'll map them over into TalkDesk. And then once you've done that, though, if you open Ambition on our side, you don't have to do any mapping. They're already here. I just pick which tasks I want to have counted.
Gotcha. So yeah, we're pulling in all of the unique fields relative to that type field, and you're just picking the ones you want to tie to this metric.
Right. Yeah, it's just drag and drop basically kind of model. There's no coding or anything.
Cool. Awesome. I know that's always a big sales ops concern. And given you're a sales ops pro across big company now, a little bit smaller company, but still a growing company, it's always a question we get asked. So you're a pro. I always like to hear how the pros dealt with it.
Yeah, it's definitely saves a lot of time. For a smaller company where you don't have like a team of analysts, where you don't have to do any real maintenance work, it's really helpful. So very straightforward. It took, I don't, obviously not too long. I did most of these relatively quickly last time I had used them.
Sure. So all call activity, booking by rep, calls, demos done, leads converted, voicemails. Basically, these are the metrics that drive the team today. And then, so those are all coming over in real time. So if they do it in Salesforce, Ambition gets it. I know you guys are big on TV. Show us how you're using these on the TV today.
Sure. So we put most of these metrics into our TVs, and so this is really helpful. Our other offices are 9 and 10 hour time difference from San Francisco, so there's not a lot of overlap as far as the reps getting to know each other or work together. And so this is one of the ways that can kind of build a little bit more camaraderie. So you'll see a rep from Budapest has currently had the most calls. That makes sense. But from Outbooked, you'll see reps from different offices. And so that type of thing is really helpful. The other thing is that in our European offices, it's mostly engineers and developers. So having a way for them to have a little bit more context into what the sales reps there are doing is really important, because we have 3 or 4 reps in each of those offices, but they're kind of to the side, with 200 engineers who aren't really aware how sales works, what they're doing compared to the rest of the team out here in San Francisco. And so that kind of connection, I think, is really helpful and has really kind of helped the rest of the business get a better understanding of what those guys are doing.
Right.
But
I'm gonna have to talk about Mikulka here in a second with these
yeah, his Photoshop picture. So Mikulka, it's an interesting one there. He actually has expressed interest in kind of operations and the product side of things. So this is, I'll let him help admin on the with Ambition, and so it's kind of a lower risk ops work than having him work on like our sales model or something along those lines. But he also gets to have some experience, and obviously he took some liberties with his picture, but that's what I get for sharing. But no, I think it's really helpful as a tool though for the team in general. They really like the songs. A rep closed a deal a couple weeks ago, and before she put it to close one, she made sure that her Ambition account had been set up. That way her song would play when her deal closed. So it is definitely kind of help building that like positive reinforcement. And with such a small sales team, getting kind of those easier wins is really nice to build up that environment, because we don't have a call floor with 100 people and it's not a ton of shouting and everything. It's a little quieter environment, so that's really helpful.
Yeah. Do you remember what her video was? What she changed?
I don't know off the top of my head. I could go look. Usually, I mean, they change them all the time. So it's a lot of like 80s pop songs. They think that's hilarious. I don't know why. Wham, Hall & Oates, popular ones. But a lot of pop songs, Britney Spears and that type of thing. Basically, they want to make sure that they get a reaction from the rest of the team. So it'll always be something well known. But beyond that, I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason.
I find that in a lot of sales cultures, it's always like goofier. Like a lot of people in their day, so like disco music or 80s. I see that all the time where they're, Mondays is like, big hit from the previous Sunday's football game. So it's like someone getting tackled or a long touchdown pass. Tuesdays, like Disco Tuesdays, and people like theme the days, and they always try to be outlandish and funny, but it makes it fun, right? You want to race to get your video on the screen. Makes it.
I mean, it's important to the guys, and it is a lot of pressure. You'll get booed if you choose a bad song. They'll definitely you'll hear it.
If it's a bad Wham song, you're getting booed.
Yeah, the reps aren't aren't super happy if there's it's a bad song.
That's awesome.
Um, but yeah, another thing is that we have stand-ups every day, and so the reps in the San Francisco office will get in a group, kind of in front of the TVs actually, and so they're going to go over what they're doing that day in the morning, and then what they did that day in the afternoon, and you'll have those scoreboards that'll show how many calls were made and how many deals were closed, right there in front of them. So it kind of provides the context of what they did and what their goal was and how it compared to the rest of the business.
That's super cool. Yeah, we're launching a coaching kind of framework. A couple people already have it, but we'll have to get that to you where it kind of ties in really nicely with stand-ups and like a scrum for sales, where you can plug those in as goals or questions and answers between a manager, and it ties right to all this data, and then kind of aligns with that framework. So we'll definitely have to get that to you here pretty quickly.
For sure.
While we're on this, I wanted to show one thing. So like, I think this Easter egg we're working, double click that clock there, and it probably won't play one of your real live ones. It'll probably play our custom one. But for anybody that doesn't know what we're talking about here, what Adam's talking about here, is this is what is happening when the reps get recognized. So if they close a deal or book a meeting, whatever Adam or the manager puts in there as a trigger, that is going to show the reps anthem song here and play it on the TV.
So we can see actually.
Oh, there he is. So this is a live one. I think if it's playing on your side, the audio is not coming through. It might be on your headphones. You're probably getting blasted on your headphones. Deal closed. I like it. So I don't know who.
So that was Beyonce, I believe.
That shows how not into the hip hop game I am. If I don't recognize.
The other one was from Glengarry Glen Ross. So it was very on the nose, but it was very sales appropriate.
That's a popular one for sure. Well, cool. I know you guys have been clients for a while, and I know the TV are always a way to pump up the sales culture. I think you guys are pretty big into the contest. What is that? What this is?
Yeah. So I didn't want to show a real one with our revenue numbers, so I just made a new one this morning with the teams we have set up for our current spiff. So what I had here was just connections made this morning. So contacts where they actually spoke to someone, not just voicemails. And so that's part of it is I can pick, those different metrics really easily from the drop down. If I want to include all calls or just calls where they speak with someone, or if I want to include demos. So here I just took calls where they actually spoke to someone. And I have my teams already set up for a real spiff. We have kind of central U.S., western U.S., eastern U.S., and then our Europe team, which includes Australia, because we have a rep there in Sydney. And then we had an SF partner rep, but he's not here today. So the example was, what the average score is, and then you get a first place. We do use this for our revenue spiffs mainly, so I didn't feel comfortable sharing those ones. But it's really easy.
You're got, in this example, it looks like, so you're going cross office, so those are teams, and you're competing on average call count, I think. So is that 8 average? So you can actually have different size teams competing evenly against each other. Yeah. Like I'm sure one of these is bigger, right?
Yeah, so if we look here, so you can see the reps. There's 5 on this West team, and I believe the East team may have a couple more, but actually I haven't gone it. Yeah, they have 4. So that way, with the average metric, it's kind of apples to apples, and you have a more fair comparison. And these took the teams I already had, but it honestly takes a minute to make a team, and the competition I did in less than a minute just so we had an example. But if you wanted to make a team, it's really easy. I just went into teams and you just grab whichever one you want, sales teams. And you just pick a person's name and you put it in, and that's it. So if I just wanted to put myself in that team, I could save it, and now I'm a part of the team. So it's really easy, straightforward, and it was not hard to build a competition at all. So
Cool. So I think one cool thing about the doing team-based averages is like a lot of times, like back when you were at Echo, for example, Chicago's HQ, a lot of people there, but you probably had other offices. And when you have a bigger sales team, for example, one of your teams is probably bigger in San Francisco than maybe the two in Europe. The average contests allow people to compete evenly across sales organization or location. So it's a great kind of spin to say, if you do volume, like total revenue, the biggest office is usually going to win. But if you do average, it's a really great way to keep everybody engaged at an office level. So that's one thing I love about offers challenges, and you were kind of doing that on call counts, which I think is really cool.
yeah, another thing, I mean, to that point, at Echo, where you had some very experienced sales reps, and then we'd have brand new reps right out of college. For some of our contests, we would pair up an experienced rep with a younger rep. And so taking an average of those two numbers was also another way to kind of equalize our teams across such a large group. Here, that's certainly less of an issue because we really only had a sales team for about a year and a half. So there's not someone with 20 years of experience getting compared to a kid right out of college. But if you have different levels of sales rep, I think that's really helpful too. I mean, it also kind of makes them work as a team, or it was a good way for our senior reps to kind of mentor younger reps by putting them in groups together where their numbers both mattered.
Sure, I'm a big believer in that, and that's why we always do those team-based contests. We'll get you guys in some of those one of these days. Anything, I know we're close to time, anything else you want to show or hit on? Any good sales stories from the floor that come to mind, or anything anything you like to share?
No, I mean, I think that definitely covers it. I mean, there is more to it. We at Echo, I think, where we had more historical data, there's these really interesting kind of, sorry, not the goals, but the goals are nice too, but the quadrants, if I could get there, kind of how performance leads to results. These types of things are really interesting. We're still relatively new in trying to kind of figure those things out, so we haven't utilized them yet. But I do think those are really useful if you wanted to expand on how else your sales team could kind of take advantage of ambition. For us, though, I think just the visibility and how clean it is and how straightforward it is. The reps all know how to change their own music. There's no real learning curve. It doesn't increase the amount of time I have to spend as an admin, which, I think for most sales ops people, that's always like my biggest concern when I see a new tool. All I think is that is now my entire life managing that tool and not kind of how it would help.
Right.
And with ambition, it's really, really more straightforward, and it's the integration with Salesforce. I don't know quite how well it integrates with other things, but I can tell you with Salesforce, it takes no time. Drag and drop or click on the drop downs, and it does not kind of take up a lot of time to be able to have something that drives behavior pretty quickly.
Awesome, man. Well, we're excited to see you guys out at Dreamforce, and appreciate you doing these. These are always super helpful for, you've got a wide span of logistics, which we have a big base in logistics. Now you're at a software company that has a totally different sales culture. But these are always super helpful for our clients either looking, or not clients, but prospects looking, or clients that use the product today to learn from each other. So thank you for doing this one. I think it was awesome. Definitely tell McCulkey he's got a great picture. And
I'll relay that to him.
Oh, one other thing, triggers. I know you guys use Slack. We need to get that live. And anybody who's watching that uses Slack, that TV anthem that went off on the example we showed, those can now post to Slack. So a lot of companies like Prezi, like Ambition, your people live in communication tools. For us, that's Slack. Ambition can now write those triggers to Slack. So we'll get that live for you, Adam, very soon. And we're also going to need to get you guys coaching. I think coaching will be a great kind of add on to your running scrum and
Yeah, for sure. That sounds good.
Well, cool, man. Thanks again. Good seeing you. And we'll talk soon.
All right. Talk soon.
See you, man.